Just for a second, imagine if you could just turn down the volume on all the noise. The opinions, the endless scrolling and comparing. What if it all just went quiet? Okay, let's get right into this, because today we're exploring a really fundamental Buddhist teaching that can genuinely change your relationship with yourself. And not in some far-off future, but like starting right now.
So let's start with this. This is the question, isn't it? From the time we're little, we're kind of taught to look outside of ourselves for approval. But seriously, take a moment and think, who are you really when you're not trying to impress anyone, when you're not trying to fit in, when you stop worrying about how you're being seen? That's what we're going to explore.
And look, it's not your fault. It really isn't. The world we live in pretty much programs us to do this. To compare, to please, and to measure our own value against what everybody else is doing or saying. We learn to see ourselves only through their eyes, and this constant looking outward, well, that's where so much of our stress and self-doubt comes from.
And that programming, it leads us straight into what you could call the trap of comparison. It's this mental space where we just give away all our power because we're so busy watching what other people are doing. It's built on a whole foundation of just overwhelming noise from the outside.
First up, you've got the critiques. And I'm talking about both the ones you actually hear and, maybe even more so, the ones you just imagine. It's that constant little hum of anxiety in the back of your mind, worrying about what someone might think, and it can totally paralyze you before you even start.
Then you can just layer the expectations right on top of that. That feeling, that weight of what you think other people need from you, the different hats you have to wear, the impossibly high bar you feel like you have to clear every single day.
And finally, all of that stuff, the critiques, the expectations, it all boils down to judgment, mostly self-judgment. So every time you put something off or you're afraid to try something new, it's probably not because you can't do it, it's because you're watching everyone else way too closely.
So why does this feel so awful? I mean, why is this trap so painful? Well, Buddhist wisdom has a very clear, very direct answer for this. Let's break that down.
And here it is. This is really the heart of the whole thing. According to these teachings, the very act of comparing ourselves to others is the main engine of our own unhappiness. A mind that's always comparing is a mind that's always lost. A mind that's always looking at others is a mind that's just moving farther and farther away from itself.
This slide just lays it out so perfectly, doesn't it? It shows the two paths that are always in front of us. When we look outwards, as you see on one side, we drain our energy, we lose our direction, and we pretty much end up living in someone else's head. But when we can learn to turn that gaze inwards, that's when we start building real inner strength and a genuine sense of peace. I love this metaphor. Think about your energy, your attention, like it's water in a bucket. Every time you look to the side, at what someone else has, what they think, how they live, it's like you're poking a little hole in that bucket. Your energy just leaks out in a dozen different directions. It's no wonder you feel so exhausted, right? Your focus is scattered everywhere. Okay, so we've kind of laid out the problem. But the good news, the really good news, is that there's a powerful solution. And it's not about becoming a hermit and ignoring the world. It's all about fundamentally refocusing where you put your attention and your energy. The moment you start to really focus on yourself, a couple of incredible things start to happen almost right away. First, you regain responsibility. That means you stop waiting for other people to give you permission or for the world to change for you. And second, you reclaim your mental power. You come back to your own center, to the only things you ever really had control over in the first place.
Here's a really beautiful way to picture this. Imagine your true self, your essence, is like a small flame. When you're constantly focused on the outside world, it's like leaving that flame out in a hurricane. The winds of other people's opinions and comparisons make it flicker like crazy. But when you focus inward, you're building a shelter around it. And inside that shelter, it stops wavering. It becomes steady, strong, and bright enough to light up your own path.
So how do we actually do this? How do we build that shelter for our inner flame? Well, Buddhist practice gives us 3 really practical keys to unlock this inner focus. So number 1 is silence, finding quiet moments both outside and inside so you can finally hear what you actually think. Number 2 is gentle discipline, which is really just the daily practice of bringing your mind back to center. And number 3 is acceptance, just letting go of this need to have someone else's life.
Now, let's be super clear about what we mean by discipline here. This isn't about being harsh or rigid with yourself. It's a gentle, kind practice. It's the consistency of just taking a few moments every day to breathe or take a slow walk or just notice your thoughts without getting tangled up in them.
It's this constant, compassionate act of just bringing yourself back home, over and over again.
And all of this leads us to what might be the most powerful metaphor for living this way. I want you to think of your life not as some big competition, but as your own private garden. Wow, this quote from the monk Chung, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? When you're so busy looking over the fence at your neighbor's path, you completely miss the beautiful things that are blooming right there at your own feet. You miss all the sweetness of your own life.
And that's really the core of this whole garden idea. If you spend all your time and energy admiring or envying or critiquing other people's gardens, what's going to happen to yours? Well, it's going to get neglected. The weeds are going to take over. But if you turn your attention back to your own soil, watering it, pulling the weeds, giving it sunlight, it will absolutely flourish.
And this is what grows in a well-tended inner garden. See, an aligned life isn't a perfect life. It's not free of problems, but it's a way better life because it's built on a solid foundation of real inner peace, genuine strength, a quiet confidence, and this deep clarity about what actually matters to you.
You know, this is the real goal. This is what spiritual maturity looks like. It's when someone criticizes you and you don't fall apart. When someone else has a huge success and you don't feel small. You start to understand that the ups and downs of the outside world are just like the weather. They come and they go. They don't have to define you or knock you over because you've become your own safe place, your own refuge.
And let's get one last thing straight because it's so important. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is an act of healing. It's an act of clarity. It's an act of love. When you give yourself this kind of attention, you're not turning your back on the world. You're actually becoming a better, more grounded person for it.
So, we end up right back where we started. When you stop trying to prove yourself, when you stop trying to be impressive, when you finally just stop playing a role, who is the person that's left? That person, well, that's where your real journey begins.